All right, so the first one is from Neil. Neil is a newer local Kingpin buyer, and he's got some questions here. And first thing, I'm not going to read the whole question. It's very long. But what I would mention, Neil, is that these questions should be answered in the training. So I don't know if you've gone through it entirely yet, but maybe go through it first. But basically, the question you're asking about is for setting up lead gen funnels. And the problem you're having is not having a client when you set up the lead gen funnel first. And what do you do with the leads? And so I understand these are all what ifs that you're asking me here. And that's it's understandable to have kind of what ifs ahead of time, but what ifs are what stop people dead in their tracks from making progress, right? My suggestion to you is get the funnel set up, get the ad campaign set up, start generating leads, and then I'm going to give you some pointers right now. But start generating leads and then worry about what to do with the leads after you've got them. Because when you go into it with the what do I do with them once I get them type mindset, a lot of times you won't even get started. And I'm not picking on you, Neil. I'm just saying that in general to anybody that's listening, because that paralysis of analysis gets us all. And in my experience, the best thing is take action. And in fact, when you start paying for clicks and you start getting leads that you're paying for coming in, it creates a sense of urgency. You'll get it figured out really quickly, like what to do with those leads. And that kind of pressure gets me to take action. And so a lot of times I do stuff knowing I'm just going to make a hell of a mess out of it, because I know that now I'm going to try to have to clean up my mess under a sense of urgency. And that's really the only way that I'll ever get it done. Because if I try to make everything perfect or understand everything before making the mess and then trying to fix it, I'll never even get started. And so again, that's just how I work. So I recommend that, you do the same thing. That said, as far as leads type stuff, now I've never worked with dentists or any sort of physician of any kind, guys. So I don't know if there's any sort of other legality issues, and I'm sure some of you on this line are,
yeah, I will say just there are some things in certain states to pay attention to when it comes to working with doctors and various things. I don't know about dentists in particular. You might know more, but I know that there have been doctors in the past that just straight up told me, sorry, I can't legally advertise. I can't legally do this. So if it's a new market to you and you don't know the market and it is a medical market, look into those questions first.
Right.
And make sure
you should always know your market regardless.
What's that, Brad?
You should always know your market regardless and go for yourself in whatever market you're in.
Exactly. So,
yeah, no, I totally agree with that. So, I mean, if you have access to any dentist that you could talk to about that, like local dentists, if you're going to be working in your own state, for example, you could ask some questions. In fact, that would even be a great conversation starter for potential service providers or people, dentists that would buy leads from you, is to call around and just ask some questions, because then you're not calling as a salesman. You're not calling as a marketing guy. You're calling to ask their expertise about a particular issue, about marketing for dentists. Like, if that makes sense.
You might actually find some pain points when you're approaching them that way that you might not know about ahead of time. If you talk to them like that, you might stumble on a gold mine. So.
Yeah, and at the same time, like I said, that's also a conversation starter from an angle, a non-sales angle that can get you in the door for potential lead buyers. So as far as when it comes to contractors, which is primarily what I deal with, what I've always done is I set up a generic lead gen funnel and I send all the leads. By the way, I can tell from your question that you're planning on fielding phone calls from your lead gen funnels. Please don't do that. Send it to voicemail. I don't care what you do. Just don't be answering the phone for lead gen funnels. There's really no reason for you to. The whole idea is just to prove that you can generate leads. That's it. Once you've proven that you can generate 2 or 3 leads or 5 or whatever for that particular niche, whatever your niche may be, then you can contact service providers and show proof and say, this is what I have available. And that's what I do. I always set up a lead gen funnel with a generic, typically now I have the service provider pretty much in place before I set it up, because I've been doing this for a long time. So I get requests for lead gen funnels and things like that. So it's simple. But when you're starting out, my suggestion is to just set something up generic, get a couple leads coming in, have it go to voicemail. Please don't answer the phone yourself. Don't mislead anybody, right? So if you're sending people to voicemail, they're probably either not going to leave a message, or they may leave a message, and likely you're going to lose the lead because it's going to go to another provider. It's going to go to the next listing. So what? The point is you can prove the phone call, you can prove the click, the phone call, the web form submission, whatever. That's a lead. Once you've proven that you can do a few leads, now you can show data to potential service providers. That's how I've always done it, and that's what I suggest doing. Anybody else have any other insight on that?
No, I second your opinion of taking action first and figuring out later, right? And this applies for lead gen for AdWords, and this also applies for lead gen for SEO websites, or organic websites, or whatever you're trying to do. Pretty much, you cannot expect everything to be laid out neatly for you. Otherwise, you'll never take an action. So yeah, I think that this applies to pretty much anything that we're doing.
And you want to get good at research. So go out there and do some research and see if there might not be a solution for you that might be able to field those calls for you while you're kind of getting your feet wet, and actually kind of group that into some data for yourself. So go look around what services are out there around the call space, and you might find something interesting.
Yep, I agree with that.
My 2 cents, first talk to a dentist in person. Ideally, you know somebody. There's also the American Dentist Association, where you can hit potential clients up. And as everybody else said, good old Art Williams, just do it.
Just do it. Yep. And so again, yeah, that's just the way I like to do it. I like to have, I've got a call center set up for all my lead gen stuff. So I always will just, obviously I know my markets very well. So I can set up a generic script for the call center so that they can literally screen the leads when they come in. It's even if I don't have a service provider in place, typically I do now, but even if I were not to, I would still have a warm body answering the phone. They have a specific scripts that they ask the caller. So essentially it qualifies the lead. And now I have the lead data that I can submit via text and or email to any contractor that I want, or any service provider that I want. And so again, like I said, it's just, to me, it's just the ability, and you don't have to have a call center right away. If you're just getting started out, just send it to voicemail. It's all you need, just something to be able to, and you have to make sure you have analytics, conversion tracking, that kind of stuff all set up correctly, which is all covered in the training, so that you know that you can show your leads coming through. You can show conversions, which essentially are leads. Does that make sense? So